Hello and welcome back. I'm Bebo Joe and this is a basic farm guide. I will tell you everything you know about initial farm setups, your fertilizers, your nutrient levels, your fertility, your crop production, your life cycle throughout the year, and your multi-year life cycles, but I will not tell you the perfect setup for a farm because that is a different test I'm still working on and I don't know the answer yet. Well, what do we need to know? Well, first, liquid fertilizer comes through the magic import if you want to use it. So I can just show you. You can click on here, click on the magic import button, say how much you want, and then approve that purchase. Wonderful, it's just going to show up. The next thing you need, obviously, get your vehicles. You want a combine, you want a covered hoe, and a tractor. If you use a distribution office, you don't need a tractor here, but I like, with the new setup, with everything else that's going on, having a truck in here, and I hope the test will verify that. So that's the first thing. The other thing, solid fertilizer, you cannot purchase. It's not part of the options over here. I don't know if it's ever going to be. So you will need a waste truck and tell it to pick up fertilizer from somewhere. In this case, I'm getting it from the customs house, and then send it to a dump that is connected to your farm. And then you can get your stuff delivered there, and that's really all you need. Cool. Once you set that up, things can start moving. Couple things that I think you will be really interested in. The fertility number up here is really related to the max crops that you can harvest from this field. Back in the day, the big field could produce 300 tons of crops per year per harvest cycle. Well, what does it translate to? 100%. Once fertility is 100%, it is like the old field. It's not exactly because there's some math and some rounding errors in there, but it's 100% is what you're trying to get to. What's the max number of fertility you can get to? 200%. How can you get there? You have to apply liquid fertilizer and solid fertilizer, or you have to apply liquid fertilizer and you have to have crops left over from last field that amount to enough to get you up there, because crops that are left on the field that are not collected, that are rotting, are treated as solid fertilizer, which is actually really nice. But you always need a mix of liquid and solid fertilizer. Now, if you're in your cheat menu, you can go here with the left control. You will get to this number. This number is very important. Once, and this is what the fields start with, about 25 tons. Once this number is sufficiently large, the fertility will be 150%, 200%, or more, depending what it is. But it is mixed. It is the 150% is what you get if this is fertilizer and is, I think, 50 tons, about 50 tons or more. You will get 150% fertility, but then you have to apply the liquid fertilizer as well, which will turn this into mixed waste, if you're curious, and then you will get up to 200%. A couple other things. I talked about the life cycle briefly. The solid fertilizer is applied before growing, or before sowing, and after harvest. So right now a tractor is actually going out because it is past winter. There's no more snow on the ground, which is the only thing that stops it, and it's actually going to go out and apply the solid fertilizer, which is pretty cool. All the other farms are set up exactly the same way. They just don't have solid fertilizer and nothing is happening over here. What does this mean? You could get into a situation where your farm, as it says over here, too late for sowing, winter is coming, so you can't sow right now because it's too cold out. It's not trying to sow, but it may send a tractor out to spread fertilizer, the solid fertilizer, which means your sowing will get delayed, which means everything else will get delayed too. So in a year, having a really bad luck will mean you're delayed on everything that you want to do. But this doesn't happen all the time because solid fertilizer actually stays on the farms, on the fields, which is pretty awesome. Liquid fertilizer effectively does not stay. They just stick around for a little while. As you can see over here, we have our tractor starting sowing, and we are way behind. But the fertility numbers will tell you something different later. We have reached 150% fertility, but we're still applying a little bit more. And it looks like we are now done applying fertilizer here. So in the end, this large field required 95 tons of solid fertilizer just this year. That is quite a bit, especially in the beginning. But again, solid fertilizer effectively stays on the field. you will use just a small amount every year. So replenishing this is easy, just the first year is the hard one. Something else to be curious about. The farm over here is already done with the first stage of liquid fertilizing. This one over here, because we are so far behind, is applying the second stage of the first stage of liquid fertilizer. Over here, we will see another tractor come out to apply another round of liquid fertilizer, which we won't, there's a tractor, which we won't apply over on this side. Why is that interesting? Well, there's a max that you can get to with liquid fertilizer, and there's a max you can get to with solid fertilizer. For solid was 150%. Liquid is more than that, but it's not 200%. So how much more? Let's see. 166%. That percentage is not quite uniform, because on the small fields it looks like this, on the medium field it looks like that, and on the big field it looks like this. Okay? It's also not set in stone, because the number of mixed waste or fertilizer that you have on the field matters a lot from when you start. Like if you start on a high fertility rate and then apply a bunch of more, you can get into the 80s, into like 180s or almost 190s just with liquid fertilizer, if there was enough residual fertilizer already on the field. So just be aware of that. So one of the ways to do that is to leave your crops on the field for a given year, or it can also happen when your crop storages are full. You're just not picking anything up. That will get turned into solid fertilizer. And if you do that for the whole yield of a field, 1 year, that's probably enough for a decade of farming on the solid fertilizer side. So you always get 150% fertility. You will still have to apply liquid fertilizer to get up to 200. So be aware of that. But you only have to apply one stage of liquid fertilizer when you get there. So that's pretty cool. You can optimize this however you want. Other things that you should probably know: a field starts out at about 70% fertility, right? Like right here, 70%. But if the field is placed on a dark patch like that, like it happens right now when I just turn or when I just demolish the place, it will start out at 10% fertility. How do you avoid that? It's very easy. You just delete this and then you press N on your keyboard until you get here. Soil is restored effectively, and now you can place your field just like before, and everything is just fine. We are back to 70%. Cool. The actual nutrient levels down here are really related to what you have stored on the field in terms of fertilizer. Don't worry about this number too much. As long as the fertility number is what you care about, you are good to go. Other things to maybe consider: the minimal fertility here is a setting that you can change to whatever you want, and this just means the farm will not set any mechanism, tractor or anything else out to the field before it hits this number. Once it hits that number, it's going out. That means if you want to apply solid fertilizer and your field is for some reason at 10% fertility, they're not going to go out until it hits 50% fertility, which will take probably a year. So if you have those problems, make sure that you set these numbers to what you need, and you should be good to go. Anything else? Well, what's the yield? I just want to point out, we are at the end of September, and with a single truck, we are just pulling in the last 2.5 tons of crops from this field that had the 200% yield, and fertility is still at 150%, again, because of how much we have left over on the field. So that's awesome. But once this is down, the fertility level will go down. On the other fields, for example, this one, our fertility is now at 73%. Again, that's just related to how much you put on it in the first place, and this is pretty much where it started at, just a little more. So, what are our yields? The 200%er gives us about 570. This number I've seen as high as 580, also it's 575, so it's a little random. Just be aware of that. Over here we have 468, call it 470. That is the 166% fertility field. Good to know. This one is about 168%, gives us 158 tons. I believe this field was 100 tons before, because it's about a third of the size of the large field. So that almost maps out. The last one, this, again, really small, gives us about 40 tons. Whatever that size was before, probably doesn't matter. But those are the field numbers. What does this really mean for your setup? Well, you about double the crops per field, which means you double the trips that your trucks have to take, but it doesn't double the time that your tractors or harvesters have to drive on those fields. So it really just means you need a lot more trucks and potentially faster trucks. So don't do what I did and put gravel roads everywhere. Use your asphalt roads with the faster trucks so you can actually make use of them. Outside of that, everything is relatively simple and still the same. So I hope you appreciated something that I said in here. And if you did, like, subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.